The underground fight world had never seen a match quite like this. Two warriors from vastly different backgrounds, both legends in their own right, were set to collide in an unforgettable bout. On one side stood Brandon Bruce Lee, son of the legendary Bruce Lee, a master of Jeet Kune Do, a fighter whose fluidity, speed, and strategic mind had made him a force to be reckoned with. On the other side, Yuri Boyka, the self-proclaimed most complete fighter in the world, a man forged in the harsh realities of Russian prison fights, an absolute powerhouse of skill, endurance, and sheer brutality. As the fight began, the crowd was electric, unsure of what to expect. Would the calculated precision and speed of Brandon Lee be enough to overcome the raw power and relentless aggression of Boyka? Or would Boyka's devastating strength and iron will crush Lee's tactical finesse? Brandon Lee inherited the spirit of his father, but crafted his own unique approach to combat. A practitioner of Jeet Kune Do, his style emphasized adaptability, directness, and the elimination of unnecessary movement. He was an artist of motion, blending speed, flexibility, and precision with a deep understanding of combat psychology. His striking was crisp, his footwork impeccable, and his reaction time almost supernatural. He could anticipate movements before they happened, making him one of the most difficult opponents to land a clean hit on. Beyond his technical prowess, Brandon possessed incredible endurance and the ability to remain calm under pressure. He had faced countless opponents in various combat disciplines and had always found a way to outthink them in the ring. His greatest weapon was his ability to adapt, analyzing his opponent's strengths and turning them into weaknesses. Despite his agility and technique, Brandon's main disadvantage was his lack of brute force compared to an opponent like Boyka. While he could hit with precision, his strikes lacked the sheer knockout power of a heavyweight fighter. He also had to ensure he did not get trapped in a prolonged exchange where Boyka could overpower him with raw strength. Brandon's focus on counter-striking and mobility meant that if an opponent could cut off his movement, he could be forced into a vulnerable position. Boyka was a monster forged in battle. A warrior who lived for the fight, he combined raw strength with an astonishing level of athleticism. His training had honed his body into a near-perfect fighting machine. His legs, thick as tree trunks, could deliver devastating spinning kicks capable of breaking ribs on impact. His grappling ability was second to none, with a strong wrestling base that allowed him to take control of opponents on the ground. His endurance was legendary. He could take punishment that would incapacitate a normal fighter and keep moving forward. His mental fortitude was another key strength. Boyka was not just physically powerful. He was relentless. Pain did not slow him down. It fueled him. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who had survived countless brutal fights and emerged victorious. However, for all his strengths, Boyka was not invincible. His aggression sometimes made him predictable. Fighters who relied on speed and counter-striking could take advantage of his forward momentum, exploiting openings he left when charging in. His high-energy, power-based fighting style could also drain stamina if the fight was prolonged, especially against an elusive opponent like Brandon Lee. Lastly, his background in prison fights had conditioned him for brute force battles rather than the kind of fluid, adaptive combat that Brandon specialized in. As the fight commenced, Boyka charged forward, his intention clear: overpower and break Brandon Lee with his sheer might. He unleashed a barrage of powerful kicks, his movements aggressive and relentless. But Brandon was a ghost, weaving through the attacks with an almost dance-like fluidity. Boyka swung a devastating roundhouse kick, but Brandon ducked, countering with a lightning-fast strike to the ribs. The Russian fighter grunted, but it was clear the hit didn't shake him much. He lunged forward, aiming to grab Brandon and take him to the ground, where he would have the advantage. But Lee was already moving, sidestepping and countering with sharp jabs to Boyka's jaw. For the first few rounds, it was a test of styles. Boyka trying to trap Brandon and force him into close combat, while Brandon remained light on his feet, striking with precision and retreating before Boyka could retaliate effectively. However, the tides turned when Boyka managed to corner Brandon against the ropes. In a split second, he seized him, launching him to the mat with brutal force. The crowd roared, sensing that Boyka now had the upper hand. Pinned beneath Boyka, Brandon struggled against the iron grip of his opponent. The Russian fighter unleashed a series of ground-and-pound strikes, forcing Brandon to absorb the damage. It seemed like Boyka might dominate the fight, but Brandon's mind was still sharp. He saw an opening, a small shift in Boyka's weight as he prepared another strike. With explosive precision, Brandon twisted his body, using his opponent's force against him, and managed to slip free. Rising to his feet, Brandon knew he had to change tactics. He couldn't afford to go toe-to-toe with Boyka's strength. Instead, he began targeting Boyka's weaknesses, his reliance on aggression and his forward momentum. He baited Boyka into overcommitting to attacks, dodging them with split-second reflexes and punishing him with rapid counterstrikes. Boyka was still relentless, but now he was slowing. His heavy strikes were missing more frequently, his breathing labored. Sensing the moment, Brandon executed a devastating spinning back kick that landed squarely on Boyka's jaw, staggering the Russian fighter. Brandon did not let up. He pressed forward, launching a calculated flurry of precise strikes: rib, jaw, solar plexus, each one landing cleanly, breaking down Boyka's defenses. The once unstoppable Russian was now wobbling, struggling to keep his balance. With one final movement, Brandon channeled every ounce of his precision and speed into a spinning sidekick, striking Boyka in the temple. The impact sent Boyka crashing to the mat, unconscious before he hit the ground. The referee counted, but there was no need. The fight was over. Brandon Bruce Lee's victory was not just about skill, it was about intelligence. While Boyka was physically dominant, his predictable aggression became his downfall. Brandon exploited his weaknesses, used his adaptability to stay ahead, and executed a flawless strategy that neutralized Boyka's strengths. In the end, it was not the strongest fighter who won, but the smartest. As the crowd erupted in applause, Brandon extended a hand to Boyka, who, now conscious, accepted it with a nod of respect. This fight had not just been about victory, it had been a battle of philosophies. And on this night, precision, strategy, and adaptability had triumphed over brute force.